Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another Star Trek The Official Starships Collection review. In front of me is issue 117, the 22nd century Ferengi Starship scene in the Star Trek Enterprise episode from the first season called Acquisition. And as you can see, there's a model and a magazine. So for the moment, let's push the model aside and look at what's going on inside of the magazine. Okay, and we have a neat looking odd angle of the Ferengi ship on the cover here, as well as some basic information down there in the bottom right hand corner. Of course, the owner is Olus, and in this 22nd century, 55 meters long, and it can go to warp speed. I don't think that was ever mentioned in the episode, but let's see. Turn the page. The usual magazine layouts, table of contents, and stand mounting guide, as well as specification, which pretty much is the same as what's in front of here. So I'll just kind of skip through that. I guess it's just considered a pirate ship, and its speed was never really mentioned. It just can go to warp speed. And here's a nice underside view of the Ferengi ship in a squadron of 3. And more about the ship and the text there, as well as a screen cap. And more screenshots from the episode, of course, with some more text. And you can see the various Ferengis in there. And turning the page, you can see where the various components are, plan views, etc., etc., as well as trivia on the left and right hand sides of the magazine. And here's the designing process of the Ferengi ship. And you can kind of see the various conceptual art and where they were planning to go. And looking at it, as I appreciate this design, however, it would have been really cool if they had gone with this, personally. But I guess I can see why they did it this way. And turning the page, here's a section on the Enterprise, well, on the Ferengi in or on Enterprise. And as you can see, these are all actors who are familiar to Star Trek, or who were familiar to Star Trek. Of course, you have Ethan Phillips, who is one of the Ferengi, and of course, fans will know him as Neelix on Star Trek Voyager. You have Jeffrey Combs here as one of the other Ferengi, and fans are very familiar with him being Liquidator Brunt on Deep Space Nine, another Ferengi, as well as the Dominion representative Wayun of the Vorta. And finally, also on Star Trek Enterprise, he played the Andorian Shran. And then you have here, we have, I believe his name is Clint Howard, who is the brother of Ron Howard of directorial fame. And he was actually in one of the early episodes of the original series, the Carbonite Maneuver. He played Blaylock, the younger kid version of Blaylock. So that's interesting. And this talks about the episode and bringing the band back together, so to speak. And more on them. I always thought that was a cool shot of him with Porthos. Then you have Clint Howard there as he looks in human form. And then you have him as he appeared in the original series, as I mentioned earlier. And the gentleman's name that played the other Ferengi, I believe his name is Matt Mallory. There you go, Matt Mallory, whatever. Sorry. You turn the page, and more about getting the Ferengi back on Enterprise, even though it kind of caused some continuity things. But to be fair, the Ferengi were never mentioned by name in the episode. They never said who they were, where they come from, or anything like that. So it kind of doesn't violate canon per se, because I guess the first time we actually see the Ferengi was on the Next Generation and not Encounter at Farpoint, but it was in another episode called The Last Outpost from the first season. But interestingly enough, Starfleet and the Federation encountered the Ferengi first contact wise, probably sometime in the 20 years before, at least 20 years before Encounter at Farpoint, because Captain Picard on the Stargazer encountered a Ferengi, and that's where the famous Picard maneuver came from during a battle with the Ferengi. So there you go. The Ferengi have been around for a while. And so its only appearance was on Star Trek Enterprise, and as far as I know, the Ferengi or any Ferengi ships have never appeared anymore on that show. And of course, next time around, which actually be coming in this month, in the month of March, will be issue 118, the Freedom class. So that looks like that will be awesome. So that completes and concludes the magazine, and you have the image of the ship on the back there. So pretty neat magazine overall. Got some nice little tidbits in there, nice facts. And now let me get to the model itself. And now here's the model itself. Looks rather plain in here, but let's see what goodness is in here. All right, and my initial impression is it's all right, I guess. It's mostly metal. Got some metal up here. Nope, I'm wrong. This is all plastic, and this is metal down here. Got this thing, which is plastic. Looks almost like a toggling joystick kind of thing. The bottom of the ship is very nicely detailed. And if you're a fan of Star Trek, which I'm assuming anybody who subscribes to this collection is, you would recognize this as a Ferengi type design. But the one thing that kind of disappoints me as far as this model goes, and even in the episode itself, there are no symbols that identify this as being from the Ferengi Alliance. Of course, the Ferengi Alliance, nobody really knows when that started, I guess. And this was simply a pirate ship, and maybe they didn't put any Ferengi insignia on the CG model on the show because they didn't want there to be, I guess, a visual record or something. I guess they didn't want to interfere with continuity or canon too much. So maybe that's why they went with that route, and they wanted it to look a little bit more ambiguous and a little more unknown kind of a thing. And I get that, but it would have been nice if there was some kind of hull marking or something to kind of identify. And other thing I wanted to point out is that this is the second ship. This is the second ship featuring the Ferengi in this collection. The first was the Marauder we got very early on, like within the first few months of the collection. And now here we are nearly 4 years, almost 5 years later, and we're just barely getting our second Ferengi ship. This one's cool, but personally I would have preferred the Ferengi shuttle that was seen on Deep Space Nine myself. But I guess this is the closest we'll get for now. Hopefully that one will come down the line. But yeah, I mean, it's overall a nice model, especially the bottom. The back has some lovely detail there. It's got some coloring there. It looks really cool. It's kind of like flat. It sits really nicely. If it falls, nothing will really fall off or break or anything like that. It looks cool. But if you're not a fan of Star Trek Enterprise, I will have to admit that this is a model you should definitely pass up. I'm glad it's in the collection because I'm glad to have a second Ferengi ship. And I'm sure a lot of other people are too. But this is not one that I probably would have rushed out and spent my money that I shouldn't be spending on. But it is a cool model. And if you love Star Trek Enterprise, and if you just love the Ferengi, then by all means go out and find this and pick this up. And it's a worthy, it earns its place in the Star Trek Starships collection anyway. And of course, if you're a completist, you're going to get these anyway. So it doesn't matter what I say about it. So anyway, it's a cool little model. Again, I wish there had been some kind of a hull marking, a symbol or something on there. but in retrospect, I guess I can understand why they didn't go that route. You know, it's cool, not too bad. So yeah, that, my friends, is the Ferengi pirate ship, I guess, from Star Trek Enterprise in the first season. So if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, please drop me a line down below and I'll do my best to answer you. And until next time, live long and prosper. And don't forget the Ferengi rules of acquisition.